One, Jesse Webb, Traders Pro. Market conditions are bullish in a bull market and continuing that overall uptrend. This has been now quite a rally that we've had. We're sitting on this upper range right here after having started down here about November 1st, the end of October. So we're working through this overall uptrend. It's really been a nice solid rally and just towards the upper end of this range now. If we take a look at momentum, we had been hovering in extreme and that has slid back down just a little bit back into that sustainable trending location. It's still in that upper range though. We'll look at a couple other charts here in just a minute. Breadth is really solid to the upside. That's a good thing in a rally like this, but also once it starts to top out, we could start to see a little bit of a slide, would want to see a little bit of a slide back into this momentum zone. But nonetheless, this is a good indication that there's solid commitment behind this rally. There's a lot of participants, a lot of stocks in uptrends, and that kind of works as a freight train, as a locomotive, to where it's really hard to stop and turn. The stock market certainly works differently, but when we get a lot of stocks and you start to get that momentum working to the upside, that can last for a length of time. Sentiment also still in that upper range. Buy-sell ratio is one of the ones to be paying attention to. They all are, but this is an area, especially where we're at in the market, when we start to see them start to get this wide buy-sell ratio, meaning these two are this far apart. That indicates buy-sell ratio. In this case, really solid to the buy side, but we are seeing a 6 on that number right now. That historically, if we look back over the last couple of years, is as high as it gets. Even if we go back 3 years, even if we go back, this includes some COVID back here. So let's go back 4 years and see if that got a little better view of COVID. So the COVID is really a strange anomaly right there, where we had this buy-sell ratio. You can see to the downside, the negative side, the absolute bottom of that market back in March of 2020. You can see it was the buy-sell ratio off the bottom was historically low, and then once it rallied, it really rocketed back to the upside. So not a great example, but that's certainly an extreme to be watching for. When we see this buy-sell ratio, where it's at right here, just drag that line approximately across the top. It's at that range. Now it can stay up here when the buy-sell ratio, and you have this green line above the red line, that is a buy-sell ratio of 1. Anything above that is 1. Anything this is less than 1 on this chart down here. And so we're solidly in that upper range, but we could pull back, we could rally back up again, and this is one of the longer time frames right here where we had a buy-sell ratio of 1 for quite some time. That could certainly last. Those can take some time, but they have ups and downs. They have starts and stops, and they can look something like this. When we're wide apart, they can come back together. Doesn't mean it's a complete reversal. It just means it's just too extreme right here. So that's the biggest concern at this point with this market condition where we are right now. Let's take a look at some other quick indices here and look to see what we've got, the overall market conditions. If we look at TLT, which are bonds, that's been one of the ones we've been talking about because of interest rates and inflation. I'm going to remove the volume off of there so we can just see the price pattern. And this is an area on bonds where we could see some resistance. It's working. It's trying to break through that $99 level. We'll see if it ends up holding and continuing that overall momentum move higher. It could certainly use and be nice inside of this zone right here if it were to retrace back down a little bit, find some more support at one of these levels as well. So inside of these zones, we're getting multiple locations now on bonds, and it's had a big run with the equity markets as well. And that doesn't necessarily mean that we could, again, be reversing, but it does mean that it needs a period of time to be able to digest some of these gains and set up for new demand going forward. At this point, still dealing with uncertainties in the economy and in the market, and bond market it's responding nicely to what the Fed has been forecasting, and that ultimately is really one of the biggest things that the market's concerned about right here at these levels is inflation and interest rates. That'll probably continue to be the talking points going into this next year, as well as others that are always talking points like profits and recession and war and everything else. So a lot of times we just don't want to overdo it with the things we're trying to analyze. We just want to focus on what is working, what are the current trends, and focus on those. If we look at the sector ETF, we had utilities and consumer goods slip back in this hold trend. Everything else still continuing to work. So anytime we see a topping pattern or market starting to reverse, we want to take a look at sectors to see how many sectors are still participating. And as we start to see this number, as we start to see these start to trend back down a little bit, and more are inching into that downtrend, then that's another indication that the market is pausing or slowing. We're seeing more than we did a few weeks ago, and so there is some selling happening up here at these levels, but just not a lot as of yet. This week more than likely will continue to be a little bit slower week for stocks with the holiday week and a shortened trading week as well. We take a look at a couple of trade ideas for today. Let's go here, and I'm going to pull in these stocks. We'll take a look through these. First one to take a look at, consider ELTK. Nice uptrend, pulled back into the momentum zone towards the support of the momentum zone, and then also a supply or a excuse me, what's the word I'm looking for? Just left me. Into this bullish trend, and some really nice fundamentals on this stock as well. Electronics, we're seeing a lot of demand there as well, and a lot of those kind of stocks have been moving nicely this week. We just bump over here to, I want to go to this one, and I want to go to this one. And we'll take a look at that next one. CLBT, this is a nice looking stock, showed up in a lot of different screens this week, and a really big momentum, really big fundamentals as well. Good confirmation bar, also had really big volume, and we can get that one to stick for a minute. Big volume the other day, and continuing to move higher into some nice volume today, or as of Friday. THR, also one to consider. Industrial controls in that upper momentum zone, and looking good here. If you want to continue to do more research on a stock that has some momentum behind it and is starting to qualify for some of those scans, but you want to know more about the stock, one way to do that is to just click on this drop down, go out here to some of these other locations, Google, for example, and then I could pull in and go in and just take a look at their website even and say, who are these guys? What do they do? And industrial process heating. You look at a stock, it's just a quick way to be able to look and say, oh, what do these guys do? Oh, I see, that's interesting. And I want to continue to do a little homework or not. But that way, it becomes a little bit more interesting to learn about some of these stocks and what they're doing, and then potentially why. We don't always have to know that. That's one of the biggest problems in investing and trading is we don't always have to know why, but oftentimes, if we're looking for a trade, we want to know what industry it is, and so even just looking at that quick glance of that homepage gives us a little bit of a better idea, and we can even do a little bit more research from there. Nice pattern, nice setup. That'll do it for today's update. If you don't have full access to the site and software, you can sign up with the link below, and we look forward to having you. Have a fantastic day today.